to the communication to the school district, and I've spoken to a number of school board members in the past 24 hours relative to some of the concerns and more specifically to the request or demand that the chief of human resources for the school district be removed from that capacity at this time because of the failures that have taken place recently and the concern from employees, not just teachers, that if such a consequential failure already happened prior to students and teachers returning to campus, we want someone that we have faith in that is more capable and skilled in that position. So we stand by, CTA stands by our demand of the school district and the superintendent to replace the chief of HR. We just feel like there is a complete lack of confidence because of the failure to set up this remote working assignment policy until literally what is now 1 week from the day that schools open. We've been told that employees who apply for that while they're waiting for their application to be processed to determine if they get an assignment, remote working assignment or not, if they don't hear back in time by the time brick-and-mortar campus is open, they will have to take sick leave from their own personal time, or they will have to report to campus, which we think is unacceptable because that's a direct consequence of the failure of the Human Resources Department to set this policy up in a timely manner. So now because of their incompetence, teachers who will be granted medically justified remote working assignments may have to go into the school or use their sick time because of the mistakes made by that department. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back. We just feel like right now the COVID situation is disastrous enough and trying enough for everybody, and we cannot have leaders in high levels in the district who are capable of fumbling the ball so profoundly, especially with regards to safety and the concerns of the lives of our employees. So that's where our position remains on that demand of the superintendent, and we hope that the school board weighs in today. We hope that the superintendent weighs in today to make a decision to act on this demand and instill some sense of faith that there is accountability being held in the higher echelons of the district leadership. If a teacher were to make egregious mistakes and do terrible things and not perform their job duties properly, they would be reprimanded or worse. And we think that people who work in the district headquarters who make six figures should not be immune from accountability, especially at this time. So if anyone has any questions on that particular issue, I'll be happy to answer them right now, or I'll keep going.
To be clear, Justin, it sounds to me like you've not heard directly from the superintendent. Is that right?
No, he has not. He has not responded or made any indication to CTA at all about what his response is or his intended actions are to that demand.
Also on the school board agenda this afternoon is the teacher policy regarding applying for those medical leaves and reviewing that. Do you see anything that disturbs you or that is out of line?
No, we think that it looks exactly like what we had hoped it would look like when we requested that this policy be constructed week after week throughout the summer, and when school board members and the superintendent himself publicly and privately promised that teachers would have a choice, or at least they would have an option to apply for a choice. So we're happy that something was done, but it's done nothing to instill confidence in the employees that the Human Resources Department is being led properly and is capable of acting in real time to address their needs. The only reason why this policy was created this past week was because the school board forced the staff to finally act on something that they had talked about for months. So we don't want to play this game where if another problem comes up, we have to go and wait for a meeting, speak out, send an email. We don't feel like we should have to fight for the most basic expected rights of our employees with regards to safety. What's going to happen now if we go into the schools and there's not adequate PPE or sanitization products available to clean the classrooms and take care of the day-to-day safety protocols? Am I going to have to send an email to somebody and cause a stir? Am I going to have to go to a school board meeting and get those individuals worked up because they're not being given the proper information to feel confident that things are being done properly? We just think that it's inexcusable that this is what it's come to, that for teachers to get their basic rights respected, for those with medically compromised conditions to have to beg and plead for a chance. Again, we have no information about PPE and cleaning materials for our teachers, and some of them are going back literally on Monday in 4 or 5 days. We just feel like we cannot have people steering this ship during these turbulent times who have proven incapable of doing it properly in the past couple weeks or months, when we should have been fixing all these issues proactively to focus on what we need to right now, which is getting the schools open, not figuring out how to get the schools open.
And are you referring to Dr. LaCava when you say you want the chief removed?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Is there any other questions on the HR chief at this time?
I do have one more question. Do you have any estimate from CTA's point about how many people would be applying for these waivers? I couldn't venture an educated guess. Anecdotally, I would wager anywhere, from 500 to 1,000 would be a conservative estimate. And I think that's to say that there will likely be a lot of people applying who don't necessarily qualify or might not ought to be applying, but they're going to give it a shot. So I don't know how many positions ultimately will be allowed to be granted the remote working assignment, but I would expect hundreds, if not 1,000 or more, of the teachers to apply, and that'll be a combination of their own personal medical needs, or there are a lot of teachers who are very concerned about individual family members in their house who have compromised medical situations, and while they are much less likely, an employee who doesn't have a personal medical issue but has a family medical issue, they're much less likely to be given a remote working assignment, because we agree with the district. We truly do need to reserve those for actual employees, because there will be a finite number of positions. But yeah, there will be a significant number that apply, I believe. Thanks.
Okay. So just moving on to the rest of the letter, I'll be quick, and then if anyone has any questions in general, I'll be happy to try to answer them. As we spoke about in the letter, the concern over simultaneous teaching, where a teacher is tasked with having students physically in the classroom and also having students virtually, and that would be a combination of students in these overflow rooms who can't fit inside the capacity limits of a classroom due to social distance, and students who remain in distance learning because they or their parents are not comfortable sending them back. We have not been given any actual guidance from the school district to date on how to accomplish that task. Whether a teacher thinks it's impossible or not is irrelevant. We are going to have to do it in some way, shape, or form. And to date, we would have liked to see, and we've asked, to give us some tips and some hints in how this is going to work, because no one's ever done it before. On its face, it sounds extremely complicated to do it properly. And teachers, I always say, their biggest fear is that they will fail and they will not live up to the expectations of their students. So they're concerned that with a lack of guidance, that an already difficult task is only further going to be difficult for them to achieve. So we're asking for guidance and help on that. We're also asking the district to make a deliberate effort to pair students who remain in distance learning with teachers who request these remote working assignments, and pair students who come back to the classroom physically with teachers who come back. That's something that had been discussed throughout the summer on and off, and at some point, for some reason, the district decided to kind of turn their back on that approach. And you heard from several school board members last Wednesday that shocked them. They thought that there was a conscious effort to try to pair up like students with like teachers based on distance learning and in-class, in-person instruction. And somehow, they were even unaware, which points to the broader problem that's occurring in this district right now, is just a lack of communication. It makes no sense to me that school board members, If the district doesn't want to tell the public certain things, that's their prerogative. If they don't want to be forthright with me as the teachers union president, that's their prerogative. But the school board members themselves are the elected leaders of the school district. They're the bosses of the boss of the school district, the superintendent. And for them to come into public meetings and express astonishment in the lack of progress and lack of planning and lack of execution that they had assumed or been told was taking place is scary to me. These people were elected to lead this district and make critical decisions, especially during a time of crisis. And for them to say that they are in the dark, it should be shocking to everyone, as it was to them as they expressed it. So we need, on that simultaneous teaching, someone's got to tell us how to fly that plane. They keep saying we're building the plane as we fly it. Well, the teachers are the ones in the classrooms who literally have to fly the plane, and they aren't even being given instructions how to do it. So even if we manage to build this thing, you're not telling the operators, the pilots, how to operate it, and that is a serious concern for them. So that's our issue with simultaneous teaching. We just think that it was, like many decisions that appear to be taking place from the district's perspective, what is easiest for them to execute tends to be their default position. And I've expressed to my teachers all summer long and going into this school year that you're not going to have an easy job this year. Your job will be much more difficult. There are tons of things that CTA has conceded and accepted because we are working hard to make sure the students get a proper education, and we understand that takes sacrifice. The district has shown an absolute unwillingness to put in the extra work and make sacrifice to do right by their employees, and then consequently by their students. So, we're just asking the district to do a better job, to treat their employees more fairly, to pay attention to their concerns and their needs, and properly equip them to do this monumental task. Does anyone have any questions about simultaneous teaching when we return to the campuses for phase 2?
Have you heard anything from some of our area districts? I know they're a lot smaller, but Martin County, some of the others are doing this mode of simultaneous teaching. Have you heard any feedback from them?
Yeah, mostly you tend to hear negative stuff. Obviously, when people who are happy tend to stay quiet, and people who are upset tend to be vocal. So we've heard mostly negative stuff, and a lot of it has to do with preparedness and being educated or trained or at least informed, with a document that says here are the best practices to properly execute this. So that the lack of information and education is our primary concern, because that'll directly lead to a failure to deliver a high quality education to all students. The fear for teachers is, right now without proper direction, in their head, they're saying, well, which group do I pay more attention to? How do I tend to the students in the class who are there and not ignore the kids on the screen, and vice versa? And they're not being given any confidence or instilled any confidence because they're not being given any information how to do it. So they're just being told this is what you're going to do. And it seems to be very difficult and absurd on its face. And if there's a way to do it, we just haven't been told. And that, again, that's scaring teachers on top of all the other issues with safety. They want to do their job properly. They don't want to fail, and they don't want to be perceived to be failures at this critical time when the community is relying on them. So yeah, we have not heard many good things, and we've heard mostly concerns raised about inadequate preparation, inadequate technology, inadequate communication on how to be successful. Any other questions on simultaneous teaching? Okay. The third issue that we raised was just the alterations to a teacher's schedule throughout the day that all but eliminates any time outside of instruction that they would have for breaks, for lunch, and for general planning. So that's something that, we're in discussions with the district for an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, an agreement on phase 2 working conditions. And it's painful for us to watch and hear the district say, well, this is what you guys have to do. And it basically includes eliminating a lunch break for teachers. They'll have to chaperone students during lunch now. telling teachers that they'll have to open up their classrooms prior to first period starting and allow students to come in to, again, chaperone them while they eat breakfast on campus. And for many teachers, depending on the grade level, elementary versus secondary, they're being told that they'll have to, again, sacrifice their planning period at the end of the day for other obligations or during the day to cover these overflow rooms, because the schools just don't have an excess number of employees sitting around to watch these kids who have to get shifted into a different space for social distancing sake. So it's deeply concerning to us that the trend for the district seems to be, well, this is the easiest way for us to do it, so you have to do it this way. And in this case, with planning time and lunchtime, it's basically saying that teachers will not have a break and will be supervising or instructing students from the moment school starts to the moment school ends. And that means that absent planning time, teachers are going to still do their job and complete their work for the next day, so they're prepared to continue instruction. And that means that, the district is essentially saying, do more work after hours for free because we need you to give up that time you normally have during the contract day for planning and breaks and lunch and things like that. So that's just, it's a tough enough situation, but if you eliminate teachers' breaks and planning time, how much more can an employee take before you break their back and they lose faith that they can do their job? And how does that affect their job performance if some of them just throw in the towel and say, you know what, I'm doing my best. I know it's not good enough, but what can I do? There's only so many hours in the day. I can't spend my entire evening when I've got to deal with my kids and their issues and my family's issues, and I've got to unwind after work. So we have serious problems with the district's plan right now to all but eliminate large swaths of time during the day where teachers can take a break or plan and grade and do all the things they typically would do during those periods of time when they're not conducting live instruction in a classroom. The district, again, has said this is how it has to be. There is no plan B. There is no alternative choice, so we have serious issue with that. We don't think that's fair, and we think they should work harder and come up with alternative solutions, or work better with us to come up with alternative solutions, which has our ability to collaborate has broken down in recent weeks, I think, because the pressure is on to get phase 2 operations up and running, obviously. And it just seems easier for the district at this point to make unilateral decisions without consulting us or consulting us after they've already made their mind up. And then it turns into a fight versus, a discussion about what's best. Does anybody have any questions about that, the taking away of lunch and planning time and preparation time to supervise students throughout the day when otherwise teachers would be able to do their work? Okay. And then the last item, and then I'll take any questions anyone has in general about reopening. And this one is just simpler to me, that the PPE and cleaning materials issue, we just have been told nothing. Teachers have been told nothing about what they're going to be given, about what safety precautions are going to be taken in their classrooms, let alone the school itself. This is why there was a desire under the original school reopening plan to have a staggered return to school, so that a small sample size of students and teachers could go in, could pilot a bunch of these practices that we've never engaged in before, iron out the kinks in a 1 or 2 week period. And then when larger groups of students came back, different grade levels, at least we figured out some of the technical errors that were inevitable to occur and troubleshooted them and figured out better ways to do them. Right now, again, a number of ESE students and their teachers go back on Monday, and then the following week, everybody who wants to go back or has to go back will do so. And if you ask a teacher today, have they been told what cleaning materials they'll have, what job duties they'll have with regards to cleaning their class, if they have any? The district has not articulated any of that. And again, the safety concerns trump everything else. And if people don't feel safe, it's going to have a ripple effect and affect their ability to do their job effectively when they lack morale and lack confidence in the district leadership. So that's one that we need the district to communicate immediately to employees who are going back to these classrooms in 1 or 2 weeks, what exactly the district expects of them. If they show up and are handed something on day one about cleaning this and cleaning that. You know, people are going to go back to their first day of live instruction in a classroom in the past 6 months and be given a bunch of orders and duties that they were never told about, never given guidance on. It's unconscionable to me, the lack of communication on such serious issues. I don't understand it. You know, I just don't get why somebody has not been tasked at the district with, you know, a laundry list of items and creating, you know, little either memos or tutorials or guidelines to inform people what to do. They just haven't been widely disseminated. They haven't been publicly disseminated. And we have concerns about people's safety because of that fact. Does anyone have any questions about PPE or cleaning materials and procedures in the classrooms?
Justin, given these concerns, I'm sure people ask you all the time, I have kids, would you send your kids to school? What are you telling parents when people ask you that?
I'm telling them the truth, because I'm not going to get caught up in the poor communication or the misinformation or the unwillingness to be forthright with people. I think that these are too serious issues, and the stakes are too high to have your plan be to hope things will work out. Hope is not a plan in such a complicated scenario. We need concrete guidance. We need people to have time to see that, digest it, provide feedback or ask questions so that they can better inform themselves of how to do what's going to be tasked to them. So I'm just being the same way I am about everything with the district and anyone who asks. I'm just being brutally honest, because I don't think it's right to be circumspect about things this important. And if, you know, if things are not going to go as well as they should, and that's my fear, is that this lack of communication is going to be the undoing of our reopening more so than COVID. I don't want to get tangled up in it, and I'd rather be the guy raising flags early to solve problems than the guy tasked with fixing them after the fact. That's what you saw last week when the school board approached the lack of a policy with regards to remote assignments for teachers and other employees. You know, that was a cleanup job. That's something that shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have had to happen. If people had done the work on the front end, we wouldn't have to get into these awkward and uncomfortable and embarrassing situations before the residents of Palm Beach County, because it's not instilling any faith in them that we're going to be able to accomplish this task when we're sitting here, you know, 10 feet from the finish line, stumbling out of bounds and not even running in the right direction.
Have you heard of any increase in teachers in the past, you know, couple of days since reopening was first announced that are resigning or walking away from the job? Yeah,
I think there will be some, no doubt, that resign and walk away altogether. I think most of them will take an unpaid leave of absence if they are intending to apply for the remote working assignment and are not able to be given that. The district has, to their testament, basically allowed a hold harmless, you know, if you don't have faith that you will be safe when you come back, or you have concerns about coming back, you can take an unpaid leave of absence for the school year and just come back to work in August of 2021. So I do think, I know in previous weeks, you know, the district had kind of touted that there hadn't been really an uptick in resignations or leave of absence. The reason for that is because they hadn't told people what their options were until literally yesterday. So that makes sense that not many people resigned or took a leave of absence or requested a remote assignment, because they were not informed of such until literally 24 hours ago. Any other questions on any of the topics that were in the contents of the email?
I'm curious, Justin, do you think that they can turn it around? I mean, your complaint is the lack of communication about how simultaneous learning works, how the PPE is going to work. Going to have ESE kids in school next week, and then everybody else the week after. Is that long enough time to get this fixed?
I think it's long enough time to try, if people faithfully put in the work, answer the concerns, again, whether they got to tell people good or bad information about what they have to do to make this work under the COVID conditions. You know, anything is better than you know, sitting on your hands and hoping that things just work out. and people just figure it out on their own. Any information is good information in a time of uncertainty like we're facing right now. So yeah, I think, if the district takes these concerns seriously, and I hope that the school board raises all of these issues and then some at today's meeting, yeah, I think that once you get past, being obtuse and saying we're in charge and this is what we want to do, once you get past that, because so many people have said, well, it doesn't appear like it's working, or we don't like that plan, then you start to open your mind to the other options that might be available that might take a little bit of effort and work, but will produce. And that's really what everyone needs to suck up and do right now, as I've been telling my teachers, and they've been doing in distance learning and are prepared to do when they return to campus, is there are no easy solutions to any of this. And if you find an easy solution, the odds are it's because you haven't thought deep enough about the consequences of that easy option and whether or not more effort would make for a better outcome. And that's what we need the district to do. We need them to think deeper and dig deeper and work a little harder to make sure that people are prepared, because we just don't want to fail our community. We don't want to fail our students. And that is a bigger fear, I think, for most employees than COVID and the infection, to be, again, brutally honest. Teachers take a lot of pride in their work. They don't get treated right by the state government, by the legislature, but they show up and they give 100% every day. And the worst thing a professional, someone who's dedicated, can do is give 100% and fail because they didn't have the support in place to make them successful. They don't want to do that. And they're begging for help, by way of thousands of emails to the district every week, to CTA every week. And we're just asking for answers to questions that should have been answered weeks, if not months ago. Does anyone have any other questions at this time? And if not, I certainly appreciate everyone's time and paying attention to this critical issue, because it just has to be addressed. We've reached a point where people can't sit back and hope things go successfully anymore. They have to identify and fix these problems, because we're literally there. We're on the cusp of going back.
Hey, Justin, what happens if you don't get, if I don't think this is likely, but if the board doesn't respond to your concerns today, if no one steps up and gives you the tutorials you want or gives you more information about PPE, what's your action?
Then, I've got some discussions already taking place with my board of directors, the elected leaders, along with myself, for CTA, and we will demand action, and we will take action on our own to force accountability in the district leadership. We cannot be ignored. These problems cannot be ignored. We want to be successful, and if the district isn't prepared to equip us and properly set us up for success, then people will be taken to account by one way or another. We will do everything we can to make sure that our teachers are confident and that our students get the proper education they deserve. That's the best answer I can give without being more specific at this moment.
Okay.
All right. If there's no further questions, again, I appreciate all of your time. This is the biggest thing that's ever happened in the history of the school district, and that's the same for every school district in the country. And we're just trying to get it done right. We don't want to fail. We don't want to let our students down or our residents down. And we feel that we are being set up for failure, and we can't just bite our tongues and go in there and hope and wish this works out. We want better preparation. We want better planning. We demand it because for our students' sake and their education's sake, they deserve better.